You're gonna get spicy.
I
It's
love
Truth
being
Wanted.
weird.
It's October. I've been waiting for it to get weird.
That special blend, okay, that separates us from the rest of the ACA call-in shows. It's this next call right here. We got Daniel.
Let's coast to coast it.
Daniel calling in from Canada. Daniel has an interesting claim here. Daniel's called into the show before. You're saying you believe in aliens, but not because you want to. That's an interesting claim. Daniel, welcome back to Truth Wanted. How are you doing?
Likewise, by the way.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, Dan. Thanks. Yeah, last time I called, I was talking about my beliefs on this and all that. And when I continued to listen to the show after we talked, and I know someone in Super Chats said, "Oh, Daniel, he just wants to believe." In his just to recap what I believe, I just believe basically that the UFO phenomena, that there's an alien truth behind it, and there's an alien presence in our solar system that I think is also behind it.
Never mind on the likewise from earlier. I thought we were just talking about aliens in general.
No, we're talking about specifically bug people on Mars. Like that's not an exaggeration. That is Daniel's held belief there on that. And that's still true, right, Daniel?
I amended that belief. I think they're little beings. They're not bugs necessarily. They're just little.
They are specifically on Mars is what we're talking about.
Yes, on Mars.
But I also believe there was also humanoid beings on Mars before. Also, I think their civilization was destroyed, and I think this is all being covered up.
So that's a couple of things that you do believe, and then you told us one reason that is not the reason that you believe them. Can you tell us why you do believe them? If it's not because you want to, why do you believe? Let's start with I don't want to call them bugs, but bugs on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's photographic evidence that proves it, and NASA's own photography.
And so in your mind, when it comes to beliefs, what you're saying is I can't choose this belief, right? I can either be like convinced by it or not. Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. There's a lot of people that say that about their belief. I tend to fall in similar lines. It's like, can I choose to believe the Earth is flat, for example? Like, I don't know that I actually really can. I think like everything I know about the Earth and like the facts that surround that kind of prevent me from having a sincere flat Earth belief, right? I think I could pretend.
I don't know. Do your own research, Dan.
Yeah, right. Well, of course, right. But I see what you're saying, right? I think like you what and tell me if I'm correct, Dan. It seems like this is a sincere belief you held because your interpretation of the evidence, right?
Right. I mean, I could say I want to believe that next year I'll inherit $1 billion and I'll move in with the harem of bikini models. I could want to believe that all the live long day. Who cares? I don't care what people want to believe. Even last week, a guy called in about being afraid of if there's going to be an afterlife, and he just wants to believe it. And I'm just think that's so silly. Why? Just enjoy life. Just enjoy the life we have in our existence.
What's motivated reasoning, right? I think that's what that super chatter is probably referencing. I don't think he maybe thinks that, I just like it's not less the idea of literally wanting it to be true, but more just like this is a idea that gives me comfort, and so it makes it easier for me to believe this. It's like okay, people who want to change habits about themselves, right? They say like, it's okay for me to do X or it's okay for you to do Y. It's one of those things where it's like, well, I kind of am choosing to believe this because there's a psychological discomfort that comes with realizing, hey, what I'm doing maybe isn't the best for my body or isn't best for the people around me, right? I think there's something similar to that. And definitely, Daniel, not to say anything about you in my conversations with you, but you've seen this show. I've talked to a lot of people who have alien beliefs or other kinds of beliefs. And there is a kind of sort of wanting things to be out there, right? How many times have we heard, I just want there to be something out there, right? I want there to be a grander mystery. So, I think we're all guilty of that on some beliefs. I don't know if anybody's immune.
At some point or another, sure. Yeah.
Believe that
I think I was.
I think we all want to believe that there's other life, intelligent life in the universe, right? I think we all want to, that we're not alone. I think we all.
I don't know if everybody wants to. I don't think the Catholic Church wants to. I think they would be like, no, we gotta, because then there's a fight for control.
No.
Then they gotta go
Right.
convert the aliens to Christ, right? And
It's a
whole,
bad time.
We've already done that with people on Earth. It didn't work out, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of them. I don't think it would help with the aliens case. Or us.
The underlying notion
a-
here is like, yeah, you're right. Like we shouldn't believe something because we want to. But I also think that Dan has a good point that we need to not be naive about the fact that oftentimes that's the way that we operate. I don't think people realize, I don't think people would be comfortable if they recognized how often they post hoc rationalize. And I don't just mean in some sort of like fancy philosophical argument kind of sense, but in the like day to day, no, I really do like IPAs, you know, I really do like spicy foods. Like we so often kind of convince ourselves of these things. And I think it's important to be aware of that. In any case, Daniel, I appreciate you calling and just acknowledging that that's not ideal, right? That's not what we ought to be moving towards or the most wise-minded way of approaching the world.
I love that you compared two things, one that actually legitimately nobody likes, IPAs, and one thing that everybody should like, which is spicy. That's a brilliant, right.
Yeah.
I am curious. I have a couple of questions here that I just kind of wanted to poke at and try to understand a little bit better, Daniel, is like, so I agree with you that aliens almost certainly exist somewhere in the universe. The universe is too damn big, and the stuff that makes life is too damn common for me to say that aliens, I wouldn't even call them aliens at that point, that other life forms somewhere in the universe aren't bopping around doing life stuff. That it would be the height of arrogance and nearsightedness for me to say that this is the only planet where life is. However, to say that there's life even nearby is a big stretch for me. Because I just have no evidence for it. And you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, that there is not even like little bits of life. There's like a whole civilization, and also a civilization in the past, evidence of like ancient civilizations of hominoids or like human-like things that were living there. And there's like all this stuff, this big, deep history of not just life on Mars, but civilizations at plural on Mars. Is that what you're hearing? What I'm hearing from you? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, basically. I mean, like the face on Mars is the first. That's the first clue. But yeah,
okay.
Like there's thousands of anomalies that look like.
And I'm
pieces.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb.
To give you some context here too, Forrest, we have literally looked at photographs together of alleged beings on Mars on the show.
Right. I'm going to go out on a limb and just assume that, like, if I were to then say, yeah, well, there's higher resolution photos of the face on Mars, you would then say that those are cover-ups, right? That's where we're at with this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know they tried to debunk the face on Mars in 2001, but I think
taking a better picture of it.
Heavily. Pardon?
Yeah, by taking a better picture of it. Yeah.
No, the picture that they released in 2001, you could see was heavily compressed. How could that look at that picture? How could it possibly look like a face under any conditions? That picture is bullshit. I'm sorry, it is. There was a picture by the European Space Agency released a while later where the face is there. But on the right side or the left side, you can see there's a bit of wear and tear, a little damage. But I think that thing's ancient. And,
so I have a couple of questions about that then, because I think NASA. I don't want to go in the same circles with you that I'm sure you've already been around on this show. I'm not trying to waste your time or mine. So like I'm not trying to like cut you off. I'm just trying to speed along to make sure I'm up to speed with like where we're at. What I want to understand is two things. I heard you say earlier that like NASA's own pictures demonstrate your beliefs. So then would it stand to reason for you to, I'm assuming you believe then that NASA is either entirely responsible or mostly responsible for this conspiracy of covering up this information and trying to convince people that there are no such thing as aliens on Mars. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Like they did it. Like they're guilty of the paperclip conspiracy. They did it with the Nazis. And when the first time they
you said to the paperclip conspiracy
came. Yeah, about the hiding the Nazi scientist in the Nazi.
Yeah, right, Operation Paperclip.
Yeah. No, I'm just I don't know if I would call that a conspiracy. It's just a thing that we did that was fucked up. We were pretty public about, or as I thought they were. Maybe there's more to that.
No, to be fair, that was the secret United States intelligence doing that at the time. I guess that wasn't public knowledge.
I get when I think of conspiracy, I think of something a little bit more extreme. You're right. That's fair to say. I think that's fine. But like what I mean to say is that like in terms of NASA, would you agree that NASA's main motivation as a whole, I understand NASA is not a living, breathing entity, but like the people who work for NASA, their main motivation is knowledge, research, trying to learn more stuff, and that in order to do that, they need funding. Is that would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so then wouldn't it make sense to want to go public with this stuff? Because if even a hint of a breath of we actually found some shit on Mars got out, like the public outcry would be so extreme and they would get so much funding. Congress would have to give them a ton of money and they would get to go do a shit ton of research. You see today, even when people talk about like, phosphine on Venus, and it's like, hey, and they're trying everything they can to say, hey guys, this is not guaranteed what life is. That's not proof of life. And all the pop science articles are all about, they found aliens on Venus. They found life on Venus, because that's just what the news wants to do. And people get really excited about space again. And people take pictures of the moon. People
Oh, hello? Oh.
Life on Mars, it's a real thing. Here's proof of it. Wouldn't that be in their best interest?
Forrest, last time I called Dan's show, I talked about a Brookings Institute study released in the 1960s that mentioned that looked into what were the effects of the Apollo, of the space program on the American, whatever, on our civilization. And one of the paragraphs in the report was what would happen if we encounter proof of alien civilizations. And in the report, they said that it could be a tricky thing where they may not want to release it because it could have a detrimental effect on our civilization. And they used the word decimated as what happens when an advanced civilization comes in contact with a primitive civilization. And it may be more than just that there are remains on Mars. It may be that there's alien civilizations on moons and planets throughout our solar system. But they're living inside the planets.
What would telling people about alien existence do to further along the Martians then contacting us and coming here and decimating it? Because I agree, a more advanced civilization, a more technologically advanced civilization comes to a least technologically advanced civilization. Historically speaking, they're going to then enslave and exploit and destroy that civilization. That is what has happened time and time again with especially Western cultures spreading across the world. So yeah, we can probably, that's a reasonable thing to be afraid of. But I certainly don't have any means to contact the people of Mars, and I don't know of any non-governmental agency scientist person that does. And so, like, if NASA knows for sure that there's life on Mars, then what would telling us increase the risk of the Martians coming here? Wouldn't that just mean that people would now be more mentally and possibly even physically ready for that kind of thing?
Yeah, you might be right, but I think my point, I'm trying to, on Mars, I think there's two things. I think there's a little civilization of little beings, and there's animals, and there's all sorts of things on Mars that they're covering up that they don't want to see. I just think that's another, but I think there's more to it. I think throughout the solar system, I think there's evidence of advanced civilizations that live inside planets and moons. And I think that our planet is, I believe in the zoo theory. I think they're kind of like they came to our solar system a long time ago, and they seeded the life on it, like in 2001: A Space Odyssey type thing, where
okay, but that
they came,
but that doesn't
this,
that doesn't answer either of my questions, and now you have raised a further thing that would require more evidence that you don't have. Like, that's the thing. Even if I were to accept what you were saying, that there is almost, if I agree with you that there is life on Mars, or even that there is life on several bodies like planets and moons throughout the solar system, to then go to the whole celestial zoo idea that there's another hyper advanced civilization that's even bigger that brought them here, which means those creatures are from other places that have even more life. And now also interstellar, maybe even intergalactic travel is real and billions of years old, and is now those are more and more and more claims on claims on claims that you have less and less and less evidence for. Even if you think you have, if I agree that you have good evidence for life on Mars, you do not have good evidence for the rest of that. And you still haven't answered the other two questions that I asked either. It sounds like you are dealing with criticism by piling on more claims. And that's a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm not. It's not an easy thing for me to do. I've been following this for 40 years, and it's just my opinion of how it all fits together.
Okay. So then let's go back to the original questions that I asked and see if they fit in with your idea. Because like, that's the thing about like this kind of stuff is you. Yeah. So why, if this stuff is real and we're worried about these things coming here and hurting us, why would it not be in our best interest to be militarily and mentally prepared, not just for the government, but like on a massive scale? Wouldn't you, if there was an existential threat of Russia coming here and attacking us, which we can agree that could be a thing. We want the best military to make sure we can fight them, but we also want our citizens to know, hey, Russia exists and they're scary and here's why. So that way, when they show up, we're not just confused. Who's these new people with this new flag stomping all over? What is this? So how did this happen? We would want to have people knowing about it. So why would it not be better to make sure everybody knows that aliens are real and they might come fuck us up someday, and we need to be prepared? Hey, go buy a laser cannon sometime. Be prepared for that.
Yeah, Forrest, I don't think that the danger is that they're going to attack us. I think the danger is that whoever's in charge, the powers that be, the military, industrial, financial complex that ever is in charge. The reason they don't want this to get out into society is because it's more of the effects of what an advanced civilization can do on a primitive. It's not, I don't think they want to take us over or hurt us. I think it's just that the transformation that it could decimate our civilization just to instantly go from one a state of a civilization to this super advanced state, like overnight. I think that would be too overwhelming for it.
How would we become a super advanced? How would we become a super advanced civilization overnight? By acknowledging that another civilization exists.
I don't know.
Right. Neither do I. So like, that's the thing. Like when I agree that when the colonizers from Europe came here to the Americas, they were more technologically advanced than the indigenous people, and then they exhibited atrocities upon them. I don't think that the Native Americans were suddenly more technologically advanced for having known that Europe exists. Like that doesn't make any sense. It was the actions of the Europeans that was the problem. So if we're agreeing with each other that these aliens exist on Mars, which we're not, but just for sake of argument, if we agree that that's a thing, and we agree that they're not coming here because they're just little beings, right? They're not capable of coming here. Why does knowing about them put us at risk of changing our civilization in a meaningful way besides knowing that they exist?
I'm sorry. I think the little beings are completely different They're just a subtext of what I'm talking about.
Okay. Even if it is big beings, even if there is a super advanced race of humanoid, hyper intelligent, super technologically advanced, overlord, really mean looking, big old tusks and big old dicks, and they live on Mars. Like, even if that's a thing, and we agree it's the worst possible scenario, that how are we more at risk of them hurting us by knowing about them?
It could be more. It could be more complicated than that. I don't know. It could be maybe the 1%ers don't want everything cleaned up or something. I don't know.
It could be a lot of things.
It could be a lot of things. That was actually going to be my next question. If these things do exist, wouldn't it stand to reason that the exploitative motherfuckers here on Earth would want to be exploitative motherfuckers on Mars? We have people like Jeff Bezos building the big penis-shaped rocket so he can go play Space Cowboy for 5 minutes. Wouldn't he want to go and take advantage of this? Apparently, if there's a civilization on Mars, there must be a lot of resources there. You don't maintain a super technologically advanced civilization on a lifeless, barren planet with nothing to give. There's clearly big resources there. And that means there's big mining opportunities there. That means there's a way to go and get a ton of resources. If these things were real, the billionaires of this world would be doing everything in their power to try to take advantage of them, wouldn't they? They wouldn't be covering it up. They would be trying to be the first ones there to put those aliens to work. They'd be making jobs. It'd be a problem.
Yeah. On that note. Yeah, we have been on this call for a little bit here, and I know you've got some more stuff to say, but I do want to take it to some other callers for now. I, of course, always enjoy talking with you, Daniel, and I'd love to keep up the conversation next time. But I do want to go ahead and let you go for right now. So thank you so much. Can I wrap up
really quick? Would that be okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just one thing, Daniel, is it just like I just want you to grapple with, and next time you call in, whoever you talk to, I hope you start with this, is that you started this call by saying this is not a belief that you have just because you want to. This is something you have evidence for. Right. And then throughout this call, I want you to go back and listen to it. Throughout this call, you added a ton of new claims that you don't have evidence for. And you said, this is just how I think it should have happened. I've been thinking about this for a long time. That's a want to belief. And then when I presented you with, I think, reasonable questions, maybe they weren't reasonable, maybe you disagree with me, but I think my questions were reasonable about like, hey, what you're saying doesn't follow a logical progression of events based on the history that you're trying to talk about. Why would this be a problem? Your answer was, I don't know. It could be. And that is also an example of a want to have belief. That is not a belief that you have evidence for. That's a belief that you are justifying after the fact with things that you don't have evidence for. So I think you do just want to believe this. And I think you have a lot of work to do to prove to me that you don't. And I hope we get to talk again sometime so we can dig into it a little further.